And we are recording, and I'm here with Dennis Notten, and thank you very much for joining me on this interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ian, for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
Yes, so I want to introduce you to everybody here, and you have an extensive background. There's a lot to go over. One of the things that I was amazed to hear is that you're actually a bassoonist, right? And you worked in some of the world's leading orchestras. So that I thought was pretty amazing. But now what you do is you actually do energy healing, and you also used your musical talents to help with sound in the healing process, I guess, let's say. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And I have actually some questions on that. But now you are the founder of sacredjourney.earth. You've worked with a lot of people in Brazil, the indigenous people. And basically, from what I hear, is that you're bridging the gap between the indigenous people and the plant medicines and now the Western world, and bringing that together so that people can use it maybe in a, I don't know what the word would be for that, but in a not better way, but what would you say that bridging the gap is?
Yeah, I mean, so I lived like a year and a half with an indigenous community in Brazil. They're called the Yawanawa. My spiritual family, beautiful tribe of people, maybe 1,200 people divided over 7 small villages in one big Amazonian river, Rio Gregorio.
Wow.
And those people have been working with plant medicines. Ayahuasca is one of them, but many more plant medicines are there for thousands and thousands of years. And it was really beautiful to spend time with them, and I still spend time with them. I go back every year. This year I will be there a month and a half, 2 months, and I look forward to that time. And what I saw there, these people go into ceremony, and they come out of ceremony, go back into ceremony, work with plant medicines like ayahuasca, but the whole time they live in a community. It's a village of, let's say, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 people, depending on which village you look to. So these people are always together, talking about how the ceremonies were, what is happening, what's happening in their life. So in the way, what happens in ceremony and what happens outside of ceremony happens in the exact same container with the exact same people that are around. And that feeling of community is so beautiful to have, because these people can process things together. They talk about it. They go back into ceremony to see something else. So it's just all of the same container. And what's happening now, when these medicines come out of the jungle into the world, and we're living in a very precious time, because it's just a few decades, maybe a bit less than a century, that the first plant medicines from the Amazon has left the forest to go into the world. And this last decade especially, the medicines have come into the world very rapidly. That spread so many countries, so many people are connecting with ayahuasca, so many people are connecting with different plant medicines. So it's a whole journey for this time where we live in the humanity, to learn how we can use these medicines, not in a tribal setting where they've been used for thousands and thousands of years, but in the setting of this wide, wild Western world where we do not live as a tribe, where people go to a ceremony. Sometimes they show up at 7 o'clock, they pay, go into the ceremony, 2 o'clock in the night they leave, and they will never see a person again from that ceremony. So it's a complete different surrounding, complete different context of using these medicines. So the way I see the bridge that you talk about is to find ways, pathways for these medicines to be used in a conscious way, a responsible way in this Western container that we have, getting also the same benefits that these indigenous people already have received for millennia. So I think that's a beautiful thing that's happening in this time.
Yeah, and that needs, in my opinion, based on just my experience with it, it needs a lot of facilitation, like as it comes to the Western world, like people with your knowledge need to be present for some of these people that are taking it on, because just in my experience, if someone's not prepared for ayahuasca kind of spiritually, mentally, and they haven't done prep work for it, in my opinion, it can be pretty scary and almost damaging. Is that something you'd agree with?
Yes and no. So yes, in the sense, for sure, when people are not prepared, when people go to the medicine more like going to an experience,
right,
that can be experience and can be even traumatizing for people.
right,
Because what indigenous people say, the medicine, in the end, you're not working with a plant, with a liquid that you're drinking. No, you're working with a plant medicine. And this plant medicine has a spirit that the people call Madre Ayahuasca or Grand Madre Ayahuasca.
right.
And this spirit is in the end what you're working with when you connect with plant medicines. And so this plant medicine, let's say Madre Ayahuasca, they say sing a song. That's the calling of the medicine.
Right.
So the song goes out in the world, and some people hear that song, and it's not a song you can hear with the human ear. No, it's a song that you can receive in many ways. It's like a book that you read, a video you see, somebody talking about it, and you're like, this is something I would like to do one day. And that's the calling of the medicine. And if people go to the medicine from that place of calling, then it's the right time.
Yes.
But what's happening in this Western world, we're so used to the world that we can consume things, that things are readily available. They have to be quick, they have to be now, they have to be super effective. So we go, this ayahuasca, yeah, I heard about it, I'm going to do it because I feel depressed and one ceremony is going to take me out, and like that. And people go to ceremony sometimes with that kind of mindset, not really listening to the calling, but going from a place of just looking for the next experience. And then people are not ready for it. And then many things can happen in ceremony. So it's really important to listen to that calling. So the answer is also no to that, because I think once you really listen to that calling, then the ceremony will not be traumatic, because everything that will be shown to you in that ceremony, even if it's difficult or challenging, has its purpose, which is healing, which is transformation, which is growth. Because sometimes going into ceremony is not a blissful experience full of unicorns and rainbows, as people might expect from such an experience with plant medicine. No, it can be really an experience where you can see your depths, your fears, your shadows, darker side of yourself, and it all comes up for the purpose of healing, transform that back into the light. So in that sense, I don't think ayahuasca is traumatizing for people, but it's really important to listen. Is it the right moment for you to go into ceremony? Listen to that calling of the medicine.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I had that calling and I wanted to listen to it, but it took me 5 years. And when I did do it, it was like, I've been waiting for you. And one of the things that's weird, which what you're explaining, and it's hard for, I think, people to grasp about the spirit of the plant. But as soon as I made a decision to go to do it, ayahuasca, I literally started to feel something shift in me. And then they said, the ayahuasca is already working on you before you even go and do it. So is that something you can even put into words? Can you explain that?
It's very difficult to explain, because the mystic realm, the spiritual realm, is the great mystery of what we're working with.
Yeah.
And in this Western world, we're so used to things happening quick. The scientific world is explaining everything in great detail, exactly how things works, and come up with laws how things works. Mm-hmm. And we almost believe now that when we cannot put things in such a system, then it's not true. Right. But if you actually look at science, like Newton, what a genius scientist that really was able to describe the law of gravity so beautiful.
Yeah.
But he was able to describe the law of gravity. It doesn't mean that he invented gravity. The apples were falling from the tree long before Newton set foot on this planet. Right. So there are things happening in a reality that science has not discovered, that science has not even touched on, not even start to ask the questions to get to the answers that we are talking about the topics that you are now opening. So the great mystery is so vast. And if you look at the universe, how big it is, and how small a planet is, and how small we actually are as a human being in that great universe, I think we can conclude that we have a lot to learn and that we just start to scratch the surface of really knowing what's going on here. So these things, as the calling of a spirit, the calling of the medicine, it's very difficult to put into concepts. But I think what you're touching on is really spiritual work, because the word spiritual has been used in many ways now in this time. And I think working with plant medicines like ayahuasca or other plant medicines, you're really working with the spirit that's behind those plants. So I think in the true sense of the word, that's spiritual work. And what's happening now with different substances, not that are man-made in laboratory, I believe, and also the indigenous people tell me, those substances do not have such a spirit behind them in the same sense as a plant medicine has that. And of course, you can say there's a great spirit behind everything, which is for sure true. So that might be a difference between like spiritual work and work with substances.
Yeah.
So now your question goes more in that direction, I feel.
So that's a good question, because now there's substances that I would say are disconnectors, right? And then there's substances that are connectors. And from my research, plants that have the spirits, like plant medicines and some psychedelics, for example, they are connectors. They allow us to connect with ourselves. Whereas something like street drugs are disconnectors. Is that something that you have researched and experimented with, or you know anything about, like how the connections occur or disconnections occur?
Yeah, it's something I study very much, actually, and I love to dive into those topics. And I think what you point out here is something really important to look at, because what's healing? For me, healing is to become whole again. And I think the part of healing, the journey of healing, has basically two stages. In the end, it's one journey. But one part of the healing, and that's where most people focus on, is, let's say, if you're not doing well, if you're sick, from getting better. That's one part of the journey of healing. But there's another part of the journey of healing that I think is from when you are well to becoming one again, to go back into that oneness, to that place where we're all born and the place that we all go to. That's a massive journey that goes beyond time and space. And I think that, for me, that is healing, to go home again, to become one. And so if you look at substances, if you look at medicines, I think one thermometer we can use is exactly what you say. Does it go into the direction of unity? Or does it bring us in the direction of separation? Because if it brings us more to unity, that's true healing. Becoming one again, becoming whole again. If it goes in the direction of separation, you go in the opposite direction. Disease, to not feel at ease. Right. So I think that's a very beautiful thermometer to watch, by using substances. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so you bring up a good point, and you bring up about being whole again. Now, being a person who is a musician, can you say that's also being in harmony?
Exactly.
Right. So is that, and how does, I noticed that, like, I worked with the Shipibo tribe, and they sang to us, like you're talking about, singing that song while we were doing the ceremonies. And how much does the harmony of song play into, I don't know if you want to call it healing or the connection or the spiritual connection, because I'm sure you've experienced that, right, with your ceremonies or just in general with sound healing, if you want to call it. I know that's not a real term, but what's your take on that? I
mean, my life is music. My body is music. My soul is music. I was drawn to music since I was very young. So I connected to music from like 5 years old, 6 years old. Started to play the flute, started to play the trumpet, took up the bassoon, studied 7-8 years in the best music school in Europe, got my master in music, and then climbed up the ladder of the classical music world till I was playing in the world best orchestras. So in that way, music has been part all my life, and was really interesting. One day, I think it was first Christmas Day, 2011, I was playing in the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra, which is one of the most respected orchestras in the world, conducted by Bernard Haitink, a world-class conductor, a magician of music. Wow. So I reached kind of the top of that ladder of the classical music world. And I just had done my first ayahuasca ceremony half a year before. And in that concert, I was like broadcasted like all over the world. I almost left as in ceremony and saw the orchestra from above, and I was playing there the bassoon. Wow. And I could see the orchestra sitting on the stage, and I could see the people that were listening sitting below. Wow. And I saw them sit in their suits and sitting there for their business connections. And of course, there were people honoring the music for sure. But I saw a disconnection. And for me, it was, oh, wow, it explained why I had never really felt at home in the classical music world. So for me, that was the beginning of the end of that journey of being a classical musician. And then when I played music for the first time in ceremony, for me was really precious. I was sitting on the same floor as the people and in a complete different environment, not wearing white tails, just wearing white clothes and being super relaxed on the force of the medicine. I felt that connection. And actually in one of the first ceremonies, something really beautiful happened. I started to play the bassoon in the ceremony, and a vision opened up, and I saw a woman with a man having a huge fight, and I started to play for them, and the fight was kind of like resolved, and they came together again. And in the end of that piece of music, which was the first cello suite of Bach, they left in harmony. And in the end of the ceremony, this woman came to me, and I hadn't seen her. It was a big ceremony, like 40 plus people, so I hadn't seen everybody before. He said, wow, when you were playing that song, that music, I met my father, and my father died 3 days ago, and we hadn't spoken for the last decades. And in that music, we came together, we saw each other, and we said all the things we needed to say. We apologized, and we left in harmony. I feel complete with the situation, and thank you for your music. And I was just like crying, like, oh wow, I think this is why I studied music all my life. Now I feel harmony. This is going to unity. So for me, that was it was the first time I played music in ceremony. The very first song I ever played on the force of the medicine. And that was such a beautiful confirmation that this was a path for me to explore deeper. So unity in music is harmony in music is such a beautiful teacher for us. Music is an amazing teacher. And if you actually look to the word universe, the place where we are, uni, the one, verse, a part of a song, the one is singing, it's all vibration, it's all music. And if we go in harmony with all those vibrations, I think that's the way to go back to that wholeness that we spoke about before. So yeah, music is so connected to what you're speaking about.
Yeah, and you were talking about the scientists before, and one of the scientists that I always refer to in terms of studying things that we can't see and hear is Nikola Tesla, right? And he says, if you want to learn the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, vibration, and those are the things that are really we can't see, right? Like we're having this conversation, we can't see the electricity that's making this happen right now, but it is happening. We can't. So there are those things that are happening in between that we can't see that are changing us, and that is what I felt was happening with ayahuasca before I took my first ceremony. I felt it was a very weird experience. I went down to Peru, and the healing already started to occur. And the first ceremony I didn't even drink because I had some health issues going on, and they said, we're just going to see what's going on with you through the song. And I couldn't stay awake. Like I was like trying to stay up, and I felt really bizarre and weird, but the healing had already happened. And then the first night that I took my, the first ceremony that I drank, I just felt connection. And connection is, my belief, is what our soul is here for, right? You say the music is connection, right? The ayahuasca brings connection, and the more connected I feel, that's like the healing path for me. So now I know we're talking about ayahuasca, but what I wanted to talk to you about was the vine only ayahuasca, right? And so now, which many people I talk to have never even heard about microdosing with ayahuasca, and they're like, what are you talking about? And these are people that have done it for a long time. And I tell them, like, well, it's vine only. And so there's no psychoactive parts to it. And but I'm still feeling the spirit of the medicine. Can you explain a little bit about how the vine only works, and maybe the science behind it, and what's going on there?
Yeah. Let me back up a little bit. Speaking about the vine only, I'm very happy you speak about that, because if we go to the history of the indigenous people, and this is different in several tribes. Now, the Yavanat tribe says that the ayahuasca, the vine, plus the leaves, from the plant that has many names like chacruna, were birthed at the same time, and that tribe received the knowledge how to use them together in that moment that the plants were born. So for them, the ceremonial ayahuasca containing the leaves were born at the same moment. Other tribes say that the beginning of them working with ayahuasca happened with drinking only the tea of the vine for a long time. And what they say is that by drinking the vine tea, that they saw the same visions as they have now drinking the vine with the leaves. But in time, because in the beginning of time, they said we were so connected. We came straight from that source, straight from that creator. We're much closer to the place of a creation. So we're much more connected to that spot. Once we start to lose that connection, it was much more difficult to see the visions. And this is an important part to notice. So that means that the ayahuasca vine does give visions. And some people that drink the vine only tea, in higher quantities, visions can occur, but you have to be really connected. I never went to that place, and I also don't recommend people to do that. It's not what the indigenous people tell us. So once they start to lose that connection with the visions, the visuals, then they started to look for plants to amplify those visions. And then the chacruna came in. Now, the chacruna is the plant that contains the DMT, or one of the alkaloids that's very much studied of ayahuasca. But there are many other alkaloids in ayahuasca. There are 20 plus alkaloids in the medicine that's called ayahuasca, and DMT is just one of them. And to my belief, not the most important one. But science has put so much study, so much time there, that sometimes people think that ayahuasca is DMT. But that's not true. And if you actually look back to the indigenous people and look back how the system works, because our nervous system, especially the central spine, which is a very important part of our nervous system, called the Sushuma in some languages in India, that's your antenna to connect with that spiritual force, with that spiritual energy, with that what's unseen. And the pineal gland that's on top of your spine, the pineal gland is the master gland that's in the center of your brain. Now, if you go from your third eye, the place between your eyebrows, straight into the brain, to the middle of the brain, there's a tiny gland that's as big as a rice corn, which is a master gland of your body. That gland excretes certain hormones into your system. Now, that's, for example, the gland that really dictates how much serotonin is released. Let's say the hormone that wakes you up, that makes you feel happy. It's released in the morning.
Right?
Say it again.
The connecting hormone, right?
Exactly. And then in the evening, the pineal gland dictates that melatonin is released, which is the hormone that makes us sleepy and resting. So that cycle is all governed by the pineal gland. Also, the pineal gland naturally secretes DMT in various moments of the life of a human being. That's in very deep dream states, very deep states of meditation. The moment you're born, the pineal gland does a big release of DMT in the system. The moment we die, and the moment that the mother gives birth to a child. Now, these are just 5 moments that the pineal gland excretes DMT naturally into the system. And so that pineal gland is such a big part of this antenna. Maybe you can say like an antenna of a radio. It's long, and there's this small bulb on top of it. Yeah. The pineal gland is that small bulb on top of the antenna. That's your spine. Very important part. So once that pineal gland is open, we can receive this spiritual energy very much. It's like a gateway of connection to this divine energy. So what indigenous people, as I see it, as I believe, have done, they found a plant that contains DMT to kind of help the pineal gland to open up. And if you start to see it that way, then you can actually see that the DMT might not be the molecule that actually gives the visions. That means that DMT is just a molecule that helps the pineal gland to open up so you can then connect to the realms where those visions live. And so in that way, DMT can be seen as a helper molecule in the bigger picture of the medicine ayahuasca to open you up more to those energies. And if you see that, you can also see that ayahuasca, no, the medicine is called ayahuasca. The medicine is not called chacuna. The medicine is not called DMT, because ayahuasca is the core of the medicine. And in the vine, the ayahuasca vine, on the Stropsis capi, that's where the spirit of the medicine lives. That's where the teachings are. That's where the healings are. That's where the depths are. That's where the transmission is. So that's all in the vine. And the DMT, the leaves, comes to help you to open up to that connection. So in the vine, that's all the things are there. The teachings, the healings, the depth. And if you look now, science is going in that direction. Now, science is always catching up. Science is way behind of what's happening in this reality. But it's very beautiful to look at science, because science is in the last years concentrating more on studies on just ayahuasca vine. And what they found is that there are different alkaloids in the vine, like harmaline, harmine, tetraharmaline, different alkaloids are there. And what they found in a study in 2017, a like breaking study, the concept that people have been feeling into, and something that the indigenous people of this world have voiced many times, that ayahuasca can change belief system. That ayahuasca can change your perception of the world. And neurogenesis is a big part of that. In the scientific world, it says that neurogenesis, and neurogenesis in simple terms, let's see how to explain it. You have a lot of connections in your brain, between situations, emotions. Let's say you've been bitten by a dog when you're very young. There's a physical connection in the brain between the dog feeling that pain. So once you see a dog, you go to that state of fear, pain, because that connection is triggered. Neurogenesis is the growth of new brain cells, new brain connections that can shift those kind of physical connections in the brain. And they thought, science, that neurogenesis after the age of 19, 20, 21 is not possible anymore, that from that age, basically our brain declines. And they found now in a study in 2017 by a man called Gonzalez, together with another partner, that ayahuasca, the vine, and harmaline, those alkaloids are stimulating the process of neurogenesis. This was breaking, because science thought in that time that neurogenesis was not possible. And so that proofs slowly start to go in the direction of scientific proof, that the ayahuasca vine, not the DMT, not the leaf, just the vine, has capacity to help with neurogenesis and to translate it in more day-to-day reality, has the force to change belief systems, not to change the structure in the mind, to create new pathways. And that's something really beautiful to tap into. And that power is in the vine, and in the vine only.
Yeah, I have to admit that I was ignorant of the vine only before I started working with you. And as soon as I took my first dosage, I felt the spirit of it right away. And maybe that was because I was coming off of a ceremony like a few weeks ago or 2 weeks prior to it. Maybe I felt it more, but I could feel the healing working. And, I sent you some questions about the vine only, because I've noticed a lot of different things. And this is something that I would love for them to study. And that was my exercise ability dramatically increased. And it must have to do with the alkaloids. And also, one thing I didn't mention is that I did Wim Hof breathing during my ceremonies when I was in Peru. And that takes it to another level. But I started doing the breathing in combination with vine only, and I could hold my breath so much longer. And so the alkaloids mixed with the oxygen, I found enhances it, and then mixed with the exercise just takes it to a new level. And so speaking about neurogenesis, because exercise helps with neuroregeneration, in your opinion, could it be possible that doing exercise and these breathing actually brings it to another level, because now you're just adding more oxygen to the process?
That's a very interesting concept to study indeed. I've also found that breathing, like Wim Hof breathing, holotropic breathing, any of those, let's say, deeper transformational breath, can bring people to very similar states than ceremonial states of ayahuasca. Those places are very, very much, they live in the same realm. Very beautiful, those methods. So I feel, and I agree with you, I would love to see more studies on this, how these could work together. That these kind of methods that are really healing, that go into wholeness, into unity, which for sure Wim Hof breathing does, but also holotropic breathing does, but also ceremonial use of ayahuasca does, which the vine-only tea does, that they can work together in beautiful ways. But they have to be every time studied what the effects are of the combination, because there are also ways that do not go well together. Some plant medicines, for example, are better not to be mixed, can be even dangerous or potentially lethal. So it's really important to go into that with a lot of respect and a lot of care, and very slowly really learning what that combination does. So what you've been doing is almost like pioneering this kind of exercise and that breath with vine-only tea. And I'm very touched to hear your results and what you felt. Because I felt as well when I am microdosing vine-only tea, my capacity to hold things go up. I get much more energy. I'm less tired and much more focused, much more present, much more inspired. And so, if that works too in how you exercise and what you feel, it doesn't surprise me at all, because it's kind of similar to what I've experienced myself.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the book that about the healing hackers is me doing experiments, and some of them haven't worked out well for me. Some of them have, but these are one of the things where oxygen and just alkaloids I know work well together, and I've definitely seen like some profound changes with it. So what you're doing with this, and just so everybody who's watching this and listen. Dennis has a program where it's 90 days of microdosing with vine-only ayahuasca. And I'm connected with the people that are doing it, and I've only heard amazing things. And so, there's the science, and then there's the reality. So bridging the gap between those two, because as you put in your bio, I think it was in your bio, is like you only speak about things you experience. And that's one of the things that I'm speaking about. That's what the book is about, is like things I haven't experienced. Now I can speak with you, and you can give a little bit more insight onto your experience about it. So, so is there anything else about the 90-day ayahuasca vine-only process that you'd like to share, like the goals or the intentions behind it? I know you have a whole method about going through it, which I love, but I'd love for you to share that with the people.
Yeah. So first of all, 90 days is really a beautiful time period to connect with. And what you speak about breathing, oxygen, alkaloids, moving them to the body, how does that all happen? That happens through the blood. And the blood now moves to our veins all the time. The heart is like pumping that blood and all the time. And it's amazing to actually study that system. And one way to study that is to look at the lifetime of the red blood cells. Because the red blood cells and also the white blood cells, but the red blood cells carry the oxygen to your system. They carry many alkaloids to your system. And these red blood cells have a life cycle of approximately 90 days. And these red blood cells, let's say in the energetic field of those blood cells, and the yoga tradition has been speaking about this now for centuries, millennia, that carries your belief system. The moment that the red blood cell is born in your bone marrow, that belief system of that moment is recorded in your red blood cells. And that stays there for 90 days. So when you go to a whole cycle of the birth and death of a red blood cells of 90 days, that's a very beautiful way to create new habits, to create new belief systems, to create new pathways that are physically grounded in your system. So that's why the program is 90 days. And working with that cycle really give you the opportunity to shift your state of being. The belief system that's recorded in those red blood cells, that can shift. And your state of being is really, let's say, the foundation of who you are. Because once your state of being, let's say, is based on fear, anxiety, scarciness, like those kind of things, you hold back. And that state of being will dribble into all your relationships. That will dribble into your work. That will dribble into all the things you're sharing and experiences. But if your state of being goes more to
dis-ease, right?
Exactly. When you keep going in that direction, dis-ease, you don't feel at ease, and then a physical disease can manifest on that. So yeah, exactly. You go to separation, you go to disease. Once you get to the place where you can shift that state of being to a state that's love, trust, abundance, or any of those states of being, then if you communicate to people, your relationships, the work that you share, the way you show up, the way you take decisions. We take so many decisions in life all the time. I think we take 30,000 plus decisions every single day, consciously, subconsciously. So when those decisions all come from a place of fear, or from a place of trust, that's a world of difference. So in 90 days, you have the chance to really shift that state of being. And working with divine unity, as we spoke about, having the possibility to change, your belief systems, your neurosystem, neurogenesis. And to do that, that's a combination of setting a very clear intention. Where you want to go, what do you want to call in, what do you want to walk towards? If you have clarity on where you want to go in your life, plus you have something like divine tea coming in to help you to actually program that in your system, and you combine that with a daily spiritual practice, and a daily spiritual practice like meditation, yoga, qigong, tai chi, whatever practice resonates with you. What does a daily spiritual practice do? It connects you on a daily basis with that spiritual energy, the source, that invisible field that's all around us all the time. And in these, let's say, bigger ceremonial experiences of ayahuasca, what it is basically you go on a waterfall, like the spiritual energy, it cascades through your whole body, and many things can come from that. But what I've seen, and the indigenous people in the forest do not have that, because they live in the tribe, they live in the jungle, they are connected, they go back to ceremony. But in the Western world, you lose that energy, that connection with that spiritual energy again, and in a few weeks, people are back at the same place. Something that I've seen with many people in ceremonial use of ayahuasca in the Western world. Then when you go to microdosing, you can have that connection over a much extended period of time. Going into that daily spiritual practice, keep that connection to the spiritual force every day, like spoon by spoon, like moment by moment, breath by breath. And that daily spiritual practice, that's the foundation of being connected. So the program is such that the microdosing is kind of like a kickstart of bringing you in that state of flow. State of flow is where you're really connected to trust, to love, abundance, and make decisions and show up in all your relationships from that place. So kickstarting you into that state of flow with the help of divine unity. Then the daily spiritual practice is like the fuel to keep that state of flow going. So when you stop the microdosing, that daily spiritual practice is your cornerstone to keep that state of flow. So the objective is not to make you, let's say, addicted or dependent on divine unity. It's just to use the medicine to kickstart you in that state of flow, and then teaching you how to keep that state of flow in your life. And the program is a 3-month program, and we have a whole team of support there. Many videos in the system. It's like an online course. Every week new teachings are opened. So yeah, I created that because I feel that's a really beautiful way in this Western world, in this time of technology, not to bring the medicine to people in a way that's I think responsible.
Yeah. So that's the spiritual side of it, let's say, or the being and the story changing side of it. And you also talked about the red blood cells. Now, can this alkaloid, how people say, ayahuasca decalcifies the pineal gland. Now, would the vine only be decalcifying parts of the body as well? Like say you have calcium buildup or acid buildup in the body. Is it doing that as well? Or is it, would you say, helping decalcify the pineal gland?
I don't know the correct answer to that, but decalcifying the pineal gland, there's a lot of things written about that on the internet. Many people are speaking about that.
Right.
What I feel personally is that the pineal gland is such a sacred organ in the body, and it works in a very specific way. And calcification, how does it happen? No, calcification in many joints happen when movement becomes less. That it's becoming a bit more stagnant, and then calcification start to happen. So I feel the same with the pineal gland. Once it's active, once it's used for that connection, when that gateway is really open, from that movement, that pulsation of the pineal gland, calcification will not happen so quickly. But if the pineal gland becomes more stagnant, there's less connection with that spiritual force, because that's, I think, one of the primal functions of the pineal gland, then it's much more easy to become stagnant. And from that stagnation, that calcification comes. How that works on the physical level, I'm not completely sure, but I feel that's more the system behind it. So in that way, connecting with the vine-only tea, it will open that connection. So in that way, it will open the pineal gland. Now, as we said before, the DMT is just a helper for that pineal gland to open more, but the vine does that, opens that connection anyways. So I think the vine-only tea, and it's completely my feeling, my intuition, is very much part of decalcifying the pineal gland, in the sense that it's activating the pineal gland and opening that gateway to the spiritual force.
I agree based on my experience too with that. Now, so part of this interview is about healing hacks, right? If you want to call them healing hacks, or healing hackers, basically people that are helping assist in bringing back that harmony and connection, maybe in a way that's all natural and faster than some of the other ways that are out there. So I would say that doing this 90-day program is, in a sense, healing hacking, or ayahuasca is, in a sense, healing hacking. But is there anything else that you can add to that, or something else that maybe you could share with the people that help stimulate that connection, or stimulate the machines, or our machine's natural process for healing and getting whole again?
Let me see, what's the best answer to the question? I mean, in the end, I don't think there are any healing hacks. Also, journey is happening. And in the end, and I think that's our destiny, we're going to be whole again, all together in one spot. And we're going to that place of wholeness, whatever happens, with humanity, whatever happens with our planet, whatever happens beyond this universe. That journey of healing, this massive journey, I think that's our destiny.
Right.
So that healing journey is happening no matter what happens in our small, tiny part of the history of humanity and the future of humanity, in this much bigger picture of the universe and beyond. But in our lives, I'm always looking for healing hacks, because this journey that we're on, the journey of illumination, I would love to find ways how to speed up the journey, because I can't wait to be back in that spot again. Right. So I'm with you in this quest for finding healing hacks. And microdosing is really something I found that really is a good healing hack, if you can call it like that. Yeah. Because what happens with many healing hacks is that maybe you find a way to have something really quick, and to have a quick transformation, a quick healing, a quick turnaround, a quick change in belief systems. But the human system is very resilient. It's very easy to slide back into old patterns, very easy to slide back in old belief systems. It's very easy to slide back in old environment that's not supporting your change or transformation. So what's a big part of not just finding healing hacks is finding the way to sustain that new level of consciousness, that new level of energy, that new level of connection, whatever you want to put there, for an extended period of time. Because there's a big difference between a state of consciousness and a stage of consciousness. And this is very important to look at in the use with plant medicines like ayahuasca or other plant medicines, or even some psychedelics. Because in those journeys that you enter, you can easily reach a higher state of consciousness. Now, some people visit in that journey on the medicine like being a Buddha. And having that sense of illumination and nirvana and complete enlightenment. But then you come out of that ceremony and you're back in almost the exact same place where you were before that ceremony. So a state of consciousness is very short-lived. But a stage of consciousness is, let's say, if you would compare being a Buddha in ceremony with being on the top of a mountain, where you have this expansive view, you see other mountaintops, you see the horizon, you see exactly all the steps you took to come to that mountaintop, and you sit there really enjoying that journey. When the medicine takes you there, and then you go back, it's kind of seeing a movie. Like somebody took you there in a visual force and put you on that mountaintop, but they put you back. So what that kind of experience gives you is the potential that you have seen, that you have experienced, that you have felt of what's possible. You thought about it, you felt it, but then you come out of the ceremony, but you have not lived it. You have not become that. So then the journey of life is to walk that same mountain step by step, breath by breath, finding that pause, and sometimes 3 steps to the front, 2 steps back, 4 steps to the front, 3 steps back, and to go to all those challenges, all those winding roads in 3D reality in your life, so you can live that vision. And ultimately, you can become that vision, like becoming an enlightened person, a Buddha in your life. And that's a stage of consciousness. So a state and a stage of consciousness are something completely different. So for me, the question is finding healing hacks is not just like have a short moment of realization, but it's to find the way to keep that realization in your life so you can live it and you can become it. Because I think that's the ultimate quest of what we're here for.
Awesome. And what I'm hearing is you're talking about the difference between change and transformation. Change a lot of times goes back to the way it was. Transformation is now at the new level and then continuing to climb. So that's awesome. Now, I just found out about this, but you're writing a book as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that before we end. We're getting to the bottom of the hour. And so if you just can share with the viewers what your book's about and, any information from it, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I really like what you said between the difference between change and transformation. I never thought about it in that way, but it resonates very much. And I went through transformation in the last decade in my life, going from being a successful classical musician, playing in some of the world-class orchestras, being in a world full of ego and competition and maybe fame and money and all that, to becoming something completely different. I'm not sure what to call it.
Right.
Becoming me. Yeah. And that transformation was a whole journey, and meeting the Yawanawa, the indigenous tribe in the Amazon. That happened in a very special way. I met them in a vision, and I heard their name. And a year later, I was traveling to Brazil, and in full synchronicity, I ended up in their territory, not knowing where I was after days of traveling, not speaking any language, not having any food or water, just like really following the signs and synchronicities, and I ended up in the territory of the Yawanawa. And it was a beautiful meeting. And I was crying when I learned that that's what the Yawanawa, because I had heard that word in ceremony before. And then I met them. Now I spent a year and a half with them, enter their study, did long dietas with them. Dietas are, let's say, ways to study these plant medicines, ways to become into the place where you can able to hold these medicines and share them with people. That has been a very precious journey of transformation for me. So the book is a bit about that journey. And so it's kind of a combination of an adventure story and also more, deeper insights, what I learned on that path of transformation. And also that book will contain some of the stories of creation of the tribes, because those tribes still have those ancient stories inside of them that were passed over from generation to generation, from grandparents to grandchildren, to thousands of years, to times of war, to times of starvation, to times of the missionaries coming in, where they were forbidding them to speak their language and speak their stories and use their plant medicines. Wow. The time where the rubber tappers came through, where they enslaved indigenous people to work and find the rubber tappers and abuse them, killed many of them, tortured them. And to all this time, these stories prevailed. And so this book will be the first time that several of the stories will be written down. So how are medicines created? How were they birthed? How were the indigenous tribe created? How were they birthed? Some of the stories are in that book. So it has been a beautiful journey to write that book. I'm not sure when it's going to be published. Maybe it takes a year or so. Yeah. The title is Walking with the Serpent. And very much looking forward to see that book go out into the world. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to add a ton of value to the world, just based on your background and everything. And you did 1 year dieta, correct? With a dangerous, it can be dangerous, right, if you don't follow the rules. And what was the plant that you did?
So I did a 1 year and 2 months of dieta with the Yaonawa. And the most dietas are with a plant. So first I dieted the most sacred plant of the Yaonawa, that's called muka. And that's their initiation, their preparation, to step into the place to become like a spiritual leader, a person that holds ceremonies, a practical leader of a village, a medicine man, a shaman, a healer, a teacher. The dieta of muka, that's their preparation for that. So I did that dieta. And once you do dietas with plants, and that's not something that is very open yet, you leave the kingdom of the plants and you enter the kingdom of the animals. And the most sacred animal of the forest in the tradition of the indigenous people of the Amazon is the serpent, or the anaconda. And they say that through the serpent, the cosmic serpent, all these plants are born into the world. And with that, all diseases, death, life, all came to that force. So working with the energy of the serpent is kind of, say, next step in the path of dietas. So 2 times I was able to enter and have permission to enter a dieta where I took the saliva of an anaconda as the first white person that was allowed to do that dieta in the tribe. So that has been a very beautiful blessing. I'm very grateful that I was able to do those 2 dietas. And I will continue on this path of dietas because I learned so much, and I just feel I'm just at the beginning of a long path of studying.
Wow, that's awesome. You definitely have a lot to share. So how would people get a hold of you if they were interested in, say, doing the 90-day ayahuasca microdosing? How would they go about connecting with you?
Yeah. So as I said before, what's really helpful is to have a very clear direction for where you want to go on this journey. As you said, one guideline that's important for you, one guideline that's important for me is go to unity, go to connection, find always that path. And what's really helpful with that is having a clear intention. And so what I did, I made a workbook for intention setting. And on our website, ayaflow.com, you can go there and download a book for intention setting for free. This book will guide you to very easy steps to come to a set of intentions that are very helpful to have that direction. And once people sign up for that, they will receive the information how to enter the program, what is the program, some more details. Then also they can just email us and ask questions if they have any. Or there's a whole team working on iFlow because we really want to be there in service of everyone that enters that program. So iflow.com is the website, and everybody's welcome to visit that, and we would be happy to communicate with anyone that has any questions around it.
Amazing. And coming from somebody that's doing it, I'm halfway through it, I would highly recommend it. So yeah, connect with Dennis, and I'm looking forward to reading that book. So I'm excited when it comes out. Let me know. You gotta let everybody know. And maybe we'll do another interview. So any last words before we sign off here, Dennis?
I think maybe one beautiful thing to take away from our conversation is unity, harmony, and to go towards that direction at any point. So let it be your thermometer in life to always look for harmony. And if things go in the direction of disharmony, maybe as an invitation to step back, go into a new direction till you find that part of harmony. Because harmony will bring us all back together to wholeness, back to the one. And that's a place where health is. That's a place where abundance is. That's a place where love is. That's a place where connection is. And I think that's a place where we as humanity are called to go more into. So let harmony be our drive. Let harmony be our guideline, to find our next steps in this beautiful life, on this beautiful planet that this was gifted to us.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you again for sharing this info. And again, if you want to connect with him, iflow.com. All right. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ian, for inviting me here, for having me on this video. Very much appreciated. And thank you so much for all your words. Thank you.
No problem. Anytime.